recalls which happened in 2023 and 2024. So I'm a UiPath person, and the accounts which I'm handling also deal with UiPath. So a very close association with UiPath. Other than that, I love public speaking. I am a TEDx speaker as well. I love speaking on topics which are related to technology. So two of my TED Talks which I have delivered are also in line with AI. So I'm very excited to be a part of this session, this series, and I look forward to staying in connected with you. Over to AP, my co-host for this session.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Myself, AP Reddy, Parameshwar Reddy. So, lead business analyst at Boundaryless Group and a two-time consecutive hackathon winner, a grand prize for this year's Agent Hack and first prize for HyperHack 2024, and a certified UiPath business analyst. So, I do have 10 plus years of experience, and I worked in HCL, S Technologies, and few other clients as well. So I'm happy to be part of this amazing Agentic Discovery series again, where I was a part of third session. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so Rohit, you are back, or we are good to start? Anything you want to add before we get started?
No, nothing as such. We can get started. Just one thing, as you might know, you might have heard the recording point. So we'll record the session. So in case you end up missing out any last portion or even the previous sessions, all the sessions are recorded. Kindly, use this recording to share it with your colleagues. It would be good to kind of get them up to date on some of the latest and most exciting conversations that we are having over here. Continue to post your questions on chat. We have our experts here to help you through that. You don't necessarily need to interrupt, but if you feel that there are some questions that really need attention, there will be a dedicated Q&A section towards the end, so you can unmute and speak at that time as well. So that's all. I think we can get started. Thank you, Mukesh, Anurag, and Avala. Happy, over to you.
I will
Okay,
start sharing my
perfect.
screen. Hope my screen is visible.
Yep.
Everyone.
It is.
Okay. So let me start with the agenda for today. So here is our roadmap for our session today, from understanding the BA's role in the agent lifecycle to implementation of the guardrails, tuning performance, and we are wrapping up with the maturity model. So think of this as our GPS for scaling agentic automation with the BA in the driver's seat. So before we dive into today's session, I want to bring to your attention to something that made headlines last year. So OpenAI has launched a voice chat GPT called Sky, but had to pull it back because it sounded too much like Scarlett Johansson, so without her consent. So imagine if that kind of unchecked autonomy happened at enterprise scale. So there is a total governance breakdown. So that's exactly why this session exists. So because autonomy without control leads to hallucinations, brand damage, or worse, regulatory nightmares. So, and for those of us in automation, especially working with UiPath, this is the moment where business analysts don't just define what should happen, they also define what's allowed to happen. So let's get into it. So the scaling challenge. So when we talk about scaling automation, we don't mean just doing more, we mean doing it smarter. So but scaling brings a hidden stack of challenges like unclear ROI. As autonomous become more complex, it's harder to track and through the ongoing business value. And technical debt, like old code, old automations can become hard to manage and update. So lack of standardization these inconsistent ways of building agents will lead to integration problems down the line. And skill gaps, we generally need more people trained to manage a scaled program. And governance deficit, perhaps the biggest one. So without clear rules for autonomy, risk and compliance, scaling can become very complex. And data issues, as most agents rely on good data, and if data is of low quality, the agents will struggle. So these challenges will highlight why a strategic approach is always essential. And that's where the BA's role and governance framework becomes critical. Now, what are the keys for a successful scaling? And what makes scaling successful? So it's a combination of different factors. So clear business objectives, we need to automate for a specific and always measurable business outcome. And there should be a robust governance, which is very paramount, like establishing rules, guardrails, and autonomy levels from the very beginning itself. And strategic BA embedding, having BAs actively involved in planning, control, and value tracking across the life cycle would be always a successful factor, one of the successful factor. And standardization, using reusable assets always and consistent process will accelerate development and will reduce risk. And the right platform, choosing a comprehensive suite like UiPath that provides the integrated tools will always be encouraged. And continuous monitoring. So a comprehensive suite, as I told, UiPath has insights as well, which will allow us to monitor performance and optimize continuously. Now, what's the agent's journey? So every agent generally follows a life cycle, and the BA's job is to own the shape of the journey. So the 6 stages we generally typically work with a discover, specifications, simulate, pilot, scale, and sustain. So now let's go a bit deep into each of those. In discovery, we frame the opportunity, we define the KPIs like FTE savings, error rate reductions, or faster cycle time, and critically identify what shouldn't be automated. And governance starts before you write a single specification. In specifications, we define those decision tables, we set autonomy levels, L0 to L4, create an exception taxonomy, like mapping failures to retry or human review. What we do generally in RPA, all those application exceptions will go for retry, and the business exceptions will go for root for human actions or business users actions. And in simulation, we use UiPath Test Manager to create golden test cases by simulating not just success paths, but also failure scenarios. And then comes the pilot, human in the loop. So BAs, the team will define the amber lane. Amber lane is nothing but which triggers the human review. And these cases will be routed to UiPath Action Center. And in scale phase, orchestrator queues will manage real-time data and retries for application exceptions, while business exceptions will be routed for human intervention. And finally, in sustain, we build inside dashboards tracking our KPIs, accuracy versus ambers, exception trends, etc. And this closes the loop, feeding back into improvements, and it will ensure continuous value. And who does what? So let's talk about the collaboration. At scale, one BA or one developer can't do everything. So that's where this RACI matrix comes in. So RAC is nothing but a responsibility assignment matrix. Generally, they use for to clarify who does what in a process or project. So R stands for responsible, the person who generally doing the work or executing the task, and A for accountable, the person who owns the task and is accountable, and C for consulted, people whose input is needed always before or during the task, and informed, these are the business people generally who need to be kept in the loop, and but they're generally not involved directly involved in the project. So the BA defines the policy specs, autonomy thresholds, evidence fields, and exception taxonomy, essentially setting the right strategic direction. And the developers will build the agents, integrate tools, and manage versions. And operations departments will design orchestrator queues or manage retry logics for application exceptions or set SLAs or creating any runbooks. And risk and compliance teams, they approve the guardrails, and the business owner, they define the acceptance criteria and ROI targets. And the essential BA artifacts, which are non-negotiable for scaling safely, are the decision table, which is the heart of the governance, defining the auto approve, which is the green power, and amber, which needs a human in the loop via action center, and the red, which blocks or which we cannot give it to the agent. And the exception taxonomy is critical for distinguishing technical failures like application exceptions, which are often retriable, from business logic issues, business exceptions, which needs a review, and the evidence logics, which captures key audit trails like record ID, rational, or pro ID, which generally stored in the metadata, Q metadata, or action center logs. And right before we roll out an agent to full production at scale, BAs generally use this crucial checklist. Those include our autonomy levels, L0 to L4 defined for each step, or RAG thresholds. RAG stands for red, amber, green, what we discussed earlier, and approved by risk and compliance team, whether evidence fields properly captured for audit, or was there any golden test set captured in test manager, or the cohort ready with a rollback rule documented. So this is how we scale without surprises, ensuring our automated processes are robust and compliant always. Now let's go for the second topic, agent governance. This is where we talk about building the safety nets for our scaled automation. Remember the principle, excuse me. Remember the principle, autonomy is a dial, not a switch. So we don't just turn on full autonomy. We carefully adjust those dials based risk and confidence, ensuring safe and explainable execution. So this is where UiPath's A trust layer and controlled agency model will become essential. So what is agent governance? It's our structured freedom. So think of cruise control in a car. So it can accelerate, change lanes, but within defined limits. In UiPath, generally this is achieved through a combination of tools like action center for our review paths, and orchestrator queues for controlling transaction flows, and insights for monitoring performance, and the trust layer to manage and audit generative AI features. So the BA's job here is to define those autonomy thresholds. And So if you see this autonomy ladder, it progressively increase as agents independence. So in the phase LO, it just suggests and agent drafts, human completes the task. And in L1, agent drafts and validates, human approves it, whether he approves or he rejects in L1 phase. And in L2, it executes under a cap and it routes Amber decisions to action center. And in L3, it executes and samples, and sample outputs are reviewed by the human. And in L4, agent fully executes and with cohorts and rollback rules. So your role of any BS role is to decide which step gets which level of autonomy and how we scale this as confidence scope, and depending on the organization and the decisions made by the department. Yes. So here the guardrail kit. So every organization obviously needs a guardrail kit that defines these safety mechanisms. For an example, input fences like validating data formats with JSON schema validation or masking sensitive PAI or PHI, and action fences where we define monetary caps or uh, tool whitelist. Tool whitelist are nothing but allowed tools. And policy thresholds, our green, amber, red breaks, and evidence and audit, capturing rational record IDs and policy versions, and kill switches. So for operations to halt executions on anomalies. So it can't, the agents can't go beyond those particular limits. So agent has to be halted at some point of time. So, and the best part is, you can see this as a clear policy spec. So I have given an example, say, assume that we are taking for a purchase order and we have set a limit of 10,000 USD, assume that 10,000 USD. And in the 10,000 USD, if the cost range is around 7,000 to 10,000, then it goes to Amber, which requires a human review. And if it is more than 10,000, obviously it goes for a human review without any agent action. So this is about the guardrails and policy specification. And the 5 Ps for a governance framework, which helps all the BAs to frame their framework. The first one is purpose. What's the business goal and scope? And permissions. What systems and data can the agent access? And protections. What thresholds, mask, or allow list do we need? And what evidence and audit trail must be captured, which generally maps to insights, data, and action center audit logs. And pager, what escalation path if something fails. So by walking every agent through these 5 Ps, we can potentially avoid or catch gaps early. And the BS finally check. So before any agent goes live at scale, the BA should have a readiness checklist. So our autonomy levels defined, as we said, in the stages LO to L4, or RAG thresholds approved by risk and compliance departments, or business versus application exceptions correctly tagged in orchestrator, and do action center task capture the necessary rational and attachments, and insights dashboards configured to monitor accuracy and ROI. And did we use test manager for regression testing updates? So each of these points is directly supported by the UiPath platform capabilities, which ensure our governance is robust and our scaling is controlled always. So this is about governance. So with this, I hand over to Anurag for the next topic. Anurag, over to you.
Yeah, there is an ask to go back and revisit the BA governance framework from Rob. If you can just share your screen once again and cover that slide. BA governance framework.
Is my
Rob,
screen
this is what
visible?
you're asking, right? Just go back 5 Ps. Oh, go
5
back.
Ps. Okay, yeah.
Correct. Can you explain this once again? There is a question in the chat box by Rob to explain this once more.
See, this is for our BAs, where the purpose is first we need to define what's the business goal and scope, and permission, what systems and data can be accessed by the agent. So you cannot give permissions to all the systems and to all the data across the organization. So you should limit the access only for a particular process or only for a particular department. So that is permissions. And protections, what thresholds or masks. So as we see those monetary cappings in the previous slide, that so if you wanted to protect, or if you don't want to deviate or the agent not to process any PO other than more than 10,000, and you should put a threshold level of 10,000 USD. So that is nothing but protection. And proof, so what evidence and audit trails must be captured. So whenever the agent is performing its task, so the logs and everything has to be captured, and it should be usable by everyone to capture what the agent is doing. That is nothing but proof. And pager is nothing but escalation path. So what if something goes wrong? So there should be an escalation procedure. And suppose if the agent is behaving like a rogue or crazy, so it should stop somewhere. So what is the path, or what is the point where the agent should stop performing any activity? So these are the 5 Ps for a governance framework. Are we good?
Rob, I think we are good. Yeah. Okay, P, I'll take things forward now. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for your. I'll share my screen and then we'll get started, folks. I'm gonna cover a topic in continuation. Let me know once you're able to see my screen. My screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Let me just put it on slideshow. Okay, I'll talk about monitoring and performance tuning. When we talk about scalability, right, we generally think about building new automations, making sure our automations go beyond one department, they make our entire enterprise digital. That is our general thought process. But where things get accelerated, in case you have to scale, you have to make sure that whatever you have built is absolutely accurate, and the result or the outcome which we are expecting from that automation are coming exactly the way the SMEs or the project board expected. And there, monitoring and performance tuning becomes important because that acts like a testimony in front of your SMEs, and with which they can gain confidence to allow you to move to a different department. So let's complete one thing first in the right way, accurate way, monitor it well, make sure that whatever concerns are there with respect to the earlier development, it's all taken care. Then scalability becomes easy. It becomes easy because reliability, if you see, is at the top of this pyramid, right? And why we need to monitor and tune our agentic automation program, because reliability is the key for automation programs, everybody. I'm sure this program or this series is being attended by a lot of folks who are purely into automation and also who are new to this automation or transitioning to automation. I have been a part of this series and I know a lot of people are keen to understand how exactly they can work as a automation BA if they are a general BA, right? But you go anywhere, any domain, you will find that for anything cutting edge, anything new, trust, reliability is the key. And those of you who have acted as a BA, you must be aware that when we deal with these folks, who uh, folks as in the operation SMEs or the folks for which you are putting automation, there is a general resistance because automation kind of things, you know, maybe, people are always a bit fearful that it may take my job. So in lot of, my prior experience, talks about, areas where the SMEs didn't want that automation to come to their company. They created some roadblocks, they wanted to delay it, derail it, and they say, no, no, bot is not working, let's not go with automation, automation is not going to help us. They will try their best to, do things manually because it will help them save their job, right? And they will say, bot is, giving wrong output, take this off. But if your bot is able to generate right set of output and that gets presented to senior leadership and they understand, what all benefits we are able to fetch from this automation, the confidence, multiplies and that allows them to give you more processes for pipeline. And pipeline is a key responsibility. Pipeline creation is a key responsibility for a BA, right? You just don't work on one process. You have to think of next four processes. If I'm today in March, what I'm gonna do in October, or where I'm heading to, right? For that, reliability is the ultimate thing. And if your already done program is running well, you will find, more reasons to, take things further. And if you are able to demonstrate the speed and compliance which you promised at the start, you will have a better support from leadership to scale your program. Because things differ from you look at the point of view of a vendor, and when you look at the point of view of a company who has given contract to a vendor, their lenses are different. Maybe a vendor will always be keen to get more and more and more processes added to its kitty, right? For sure, adding to the uh, pipeline which the customer has asked, but they will have their own set of agenda. But ultimately, you will have to prove that whatever you build, whatever promises you made are actually available and visible on the surface. That ROI, which you talked about, business outcomes which you talked about, are actually coming in. Then, you will get a more robust uh, support from the leadership to move forward. But long story short, your running program should work well. They should be able to deliver the similar set of output which you are expecting, and for sure, speed, productivity, efficiency, and accuracy should be the key points around which it should occur. I have a question for all of you, folks. Those of you, especially those of you who are already in automation domain, what difference do you think a traditional automation will have as compared to agentic, or what additional monitoring or support activity do you foresee when you support an agentic automation program? I have 3 4 slides talking about it, but let me just ask you questions so that I get your view to what level you're able to understand it. How different, my question, I'll repeat the question again. My question is, what kind of difference do you foresee with respect to agentic automation support versus the traditional automation support? I'll look into the chat box just to see what all answers you are delivering. Can I see the chat box? Wrong predictions outputs. Okay, good. We'll have to monitor biases. Yeah, and that, okay, that output ethics, compliance. Yeah, right. Wrong predictions output. Explainability of decisions made. 100%. All of you are correct. All of you are correct. And yes, RPA is rule-based. It just follows fixed step. AI automation is adaptive. Very nice. Okay, folks. All of you are correct, and I'm happy with the way you're answering in the chat box. See, the complexity of agentic or automation support model differs a bit from the traditional one, because for sure there are some key elements which are gonna be there in traditional and agentic both, which are for sure managing, monitoring your automations within SLA, making sure the output remains same. But here, with respect to agentic automation, a lot of things differ when we talk about quality of responses. Okay, and a few folks who talked about biasness, right? Their point gets added to this particular point. Quality of responses. Second, speed and responsiveness. Third, resource utilization. And fourth is drift detection. We'll go one by one. So we're not talking about the general parameters, which you have to manage in agentic. For sure, they will remain the same. We're talking about the additional key dimensions, which you will have to take care when you monitor an agentic automation. For sure, quality of responses, right? If your response is biased, if your response is unethical, the knowledge base with which you used to train that bot was corrupt, was one-sided, or not up to the standards, or racist, or any kind of corruption in the data, will lead to bad quality responses. So if your answers coming from your agent are actually a bit in loop, they're not direct, they're not cut to cut, you have to type again, iterate again, the overall response or the overall experience with that agent will not be that great, right? So we have to make sure that agent has information, access to information, which for which it is authorized, right? There has to have a proper control version with the kind of documents the agent is dealing with, right? And the training with which the agent is learning, right, that is coming properly, and it is giving you a right set of output and getting matured over the time, right? If you keep on I'll talk about maturity of your data in the drift detection part, but quality of responses, they make it or break it. Trust me. If an agent is able to, talk to you in such a way that you are able to get what you are expecting, what you want from the agent, you will be more keen to work with that agent. You will allow and deploy that agent to, you know, other departments. But if your experience wise, the knowledge base, you know is not up to the mark, you will have issues in the quality of responses. Speed and responsiveness, this matters a lot, right? ChatGPT 5 came in, but it was into more deep research mode. We wanted to have a simple answer coming from it, but ChatGPT 5 was taking so long to give answers of some petty silly questions. The overall experience, the mojo went down for a lot of users, right? They didn't find that chat gpt is working the way ideally it should, right? And the agentic mode, right, if it's taking too long for you to get that output, rather you tend to find that instead of that, let me just do it manually only. If you are able to compare that, and if you are thinking that manual is better, for sure the agentic automation journey will go for a toss. Because what do you want from an agent? For sure, it should work automatically, autonomously, but then it should work with some speed as well, so that the difference in velocity makes actually uh, becomes a strong point with which you would want to scale more and more agents. Now, when we deal with agents, right, we have a cost linked to it, right? If your cost is becoming so heavy that your ROI is going for a toss, then for sure you will have a difficult time explaining your CFO that where things went wrong and why are you incurring so much dollar value, for such a small petty task, right? So here you'll have to monitor the resource utilization so that you are able to run these programs at the cost for which you have received approval. But in case things go up and wrong, you should be aware where exactly what exactly incurred a lot of tokens and a lot of GPU, lot of CPU, right? So that monitoring is also important. In a traditional support model, that my support person is of X dollars, and whatever he's doing, that will not go beyond a certain particular threshold. But here things may go haywire. That is something which is meant to be monitored very, very critically. And last is drift detection, which means data keeps on changing, new information keeps on coming in, right? If you are a policy bazaar agent, for example, and you are an agent for selling insurance for motor, for life insurance, and suddenly a new information comes in where government says no GST for insurance, right? Then that level of information has to be fed very quickly to your bot, right? That premium amount should go down quickly. All those changes should reflect quickly, right? Otherwise, first of all, you will not have the quality of responses. You will be outdated in terms of data, but also your overall performance, will take a hit in case you are taking a lot of time to tune your model, to update your model. Knowledge base updation, if it becomes a very lengthy exercise, you will have a difficult time running a agent which is helpful for you. And very in these kind of automation program, agility and nimbleness, they play a very important role. You will have to be vigilant, how quickly you are able to make your bot smart, right? This is a key thing around which your monitoring has to happen. If my response is up to the mark, or that has degraded, the performance is not well, and if one particular answer should be more elaborative, the answer which the bot is giving or the agent is giving is cut to cut, yes and no. But with no, I don't know what is the rationale why the answer is no. Maybe some supporting things should get added. Now, depending on the kind of feedback you will get from your users, you have to act on adding, cutting, modulating your overall knowledge base. So there we need to have ease with which we can plus and minus the data. I'll stop here, but I'm keen to know if there are other dimensions, folks, which you believe are there, which are extremely important to monitor. I'll take a pause here. Have a look at the chat box. Model is run of the treated one response for monitoring. The vendor client. Okay, these are some questions which are maybe not in line with the slide I am in. I'll be able to answer these towards the end. So let me just complete them, complete these slides, and then I'll answer these questions. Okay. Uh, uh, uh. So these are some of the reasons because of which you will find, that a BA has to play a very important role, because these are some things around which the bottlenecks and failures occurred. So you'll have to be in line with your technical team, your IT department, from where the API call exchange is happening, from where the model is being created. You'll have to stay aligned with the solution architects of your team as a BA, because you might be aware that the data is because a lot of time the BA will have responsibility to collate that data, maybe understand how true, how bad the data is. That level of understanding is going to be maximum with the BA, because the BA is going to talk to the concerned ops SME. So if that data is in the right shape or perform, that is a call around which, the BA has to be super vigilant. And there could be, some technical things around which the BA might have to get in touch with your IT team, network, firewall team to understand if the, data communication, data exchange is happening properly. These are some additional, areas around which the monitoring should also happen. Maybe BA will not be exactly responsible to track these areas, but all in all, the BA must be cognizant, must be aware what could be some of the other areas in which uh, the focus should always be. So there is for a BA, we just talked about having a pipeline created, right? So BA has a responsibility to create a pipeline, right? To have a continuous pipeline added to the kitty. But now, if you have to think from a BA's perspective, the BA has to play a very important role, you know, to understand what all things you have to take care so that towards the end, your one project runs really, really well. Because here, when you compare it with the traditional discovery, the BA uh, generally, feels that after doing the PDD work, their job is done, right? But your output, right, your UAT will define, what all areas are there where you have to continuously work. And basis my experience, I have personally noticed that, the documentation generally keeps on evolving when we deal with agentic one, because the exceptions or the kind of scenarios you have to make sure, to keep them added there. The iterations, let you know that where exactly things can go beyond the basic information which you have collected. So the role of BA will move from all the three stages. Even in traditional automation also, you don't leave the hand of your development team after you know the UAT is done or the bot is live. BA stays there till the hypercare stage. BA, is I'm not saying responsible, because AP talked about RASI metrics. Maybe BA is not responsible to not to take care of the bots in the hypercare stage, but the BA has to be vigilant where the information has to be tweaked, which team has to be contacted again, where exactly, I need to put more details to this agent. So the role does not end, after deployment or, pre-deployment. The role stays there, and it becomes a continuous improvement cycle. And if that thing goes well, then, scalability becomes easy, and you will have more, uh, visibility with respect to your upcoming projects. Because here, if you know, and if you're a part of the series, you must have heard of a phrase that context is the king, right? So if you are building an O2C bot, there could be some context which may become applicable to your process number two, right? So you automated one process with certain context, but maybe that context is applicable to the upcoming process as well. So while you spend your time, in till pre-development to hypercare, you will find that, that context is getting richer and becoming more comprehensive because of these new nuances which I found during hypercare. And that can actually help you to have a more faster development of the upcoming pipeline, or a development or discovery of your upcoming process. So here, if the context keeps on getting, smarter, more robust, it helps the upcoming pipeline to a very large extent. And that is why continuous improvement life cycle is not just about improving one particular process. It actually gets linked to scalability. Okay, because that context will define and derive the success of your upcoming processes as well, right? And this is again a very key focus area on for a BA, to make sure ROI improvement, error prevention, scalability. I'll just touch upon these slides because I've already talked about, key focus areas for a BA, and AP also talked about that. But these are some areas where BA has to be vigilant, cautious, conscious all the time to protect your investment and business outcomes. Because that, again, I'm reiterating, that acts like a testimony with which you can have your upcoming discussions done in a more easy, fluidic manner. Otherwise, if your experience or SME's experience with the earlier agent was not that good, it is hallucinating, it is giving wrong output, you know, if you're not able to show that ROI benefit realization, it becomes difficult to scale a particular uh, automation program, right? Again, you have to visualize, a BA has to visualize the reliability part of it, efficiency and ROI. These topic I have already covered, but I'm just reiterating them because around this, the scalability and your upcoming journey will be floating. So long story short, monitoring and tuning is not optional. You have to have your ongoing vigilance, a robust framework to ensure you are able to demonstrate what you promised, and you understand with the work which you have done, or the kind of time you have invested or the kind of money you have invested, you just don't stop at one. You should be able to convince that now we have been able to do a lot of understanding deep dive. We understand how it can help not just the sales team of O2C. We can have a multi-agent uh, framework, multi-agent orchestration, where we can create an agent for sales team, we can create an agent for finance team, because the context is same, right? In O2C cycle, maybe three parties play a very important role, and they all have their individual level of work, which can be summed up, clubbed together uh, from the earlier discussions, with which the context remains the same. So uh, I mean, your time spent, your money spent, has to be worked out in such a way that you're able to unlock the full potential of automation. Okay, I'll take a pause, folks, in case there are questions, or if you can just type in the chat box. I have to cover another topic which is hovering around agent orchestration strategies and maturity model. Because when we talk about scalability, right, we have to understand how exactly we have to maneuver our journey, how exactly we can move from a level 1 to level 2. So that is what I'm going to cover in this upcoming slides. So this is self-explanatory to all of you. We have moved from automation to autonomy, right? Those of you who are new, right, for them I have kept this slide, that the earlier traditional automation was more focused on uh, uh, you know, rule-based scripts, with which there is a hard-coded way that if you do this, then the answer should be this. But the dynamism factor was not there. With Agentic, we are experiencing dynamism, on the fly, uh, exception handling, right? That kind of discussion is what we are doing in the boardrooms with our leaders. That this is how we can move from one agent to another agent. And what if, when we talk about uh, automating a process end to end, or maybe automating not a process, maybe end to end a department, you might see that there could be a requirement of multiple specialized agents, right? Multiple specialized agent, which will solve the ultimate problem, maybe in a different way at individual level, but all of their efforts will coincide or condense to deliver one common output, right? So that is how you will have to understand how things are moving from the earlier era, and now how exactly we are moving towards a multi-agent orchestration or multi-agent governance. The way I was talking about multiple agent orchestration, so think of a hospital. What happens in a hospital? There are multiple other teams who are doing works maybe differently at individual level, maybe coordinating with patient care, somebody is taking care of insurance verification, somebody is taking care of resource allocation. But what is the ultimate goal of all the members working in that hospital? That is patient's care. That's the ultimate objective. Everybody's role may be different. That is why we need a coordinated intelligence, so that all folks or all teams involved do not work in silos, that they forget the actual motive, actual objective. And that is why there is a need of coordinated intelligence, right? Coordinated intelligence will help you to understand how exactly multiple AI agents can work in tandem, work in synchronization in a symbiotic relationship to accomplish complex objectives, okay, that exceed individual agent capabilities. So we'll have the ultimate goal, ultimate thought process for an scalable agentic automation has to be to tune all the agents for a common objective, right? For example, O2C life cycle. So how sales agent, how finance agent, how ops agent, they all can work together. Because if the context at the top is in line with individuals' agenda, there is a possibility that you can, run them harmoniously, and they will be able to complement each other's effort. One's output will become somebody's input. And that is something, if that level of synchronization happens, uh, uh, this is where your overall success probability gets improved. And that is why we need a specific way with which we can move towards that particular north star, where multiple agents work together to accomplish same common objective. So generally, the orchestration patterns are around, sequential orchestration, where where you have a linear pipeline when the agents are working or getting operated, at a sequence individually, maybe in silos. But when we talk about the next stage with which we want the orchestration to happen, there we want, the uh, overall time for the activity gets reduced, and that can become possible if we run 2 3 agents parallelly, a concurrent orchestration where multiple agents execute parallel tasks, one particular task taken by one particular agent, a different agent taking care of a different task, but the overall journey or overall time gets reduced. And third, where I talk about uh, you know uh, multiple agents talking to each other, somebody's input becoming somebody's output, right? The way I just covered in the earlier slide, that creates such a level of synchronization where the real time decision making adjustments happen, right? So once if a bot was if an agent was answering something, which was just in line with a single agent, but there is a possibility that answer, if gets added to a context of a sales team, right, the answer may differ, and the overall response for that particular task, is better as compared to one single answer, right? So that is how you will have to understand, how multiple agents can move from sequential orchestration to dynamic agent collaboration. And these are the 4 levels around which we'll have to understand how you can actually move for agentic maturity. First thing first, fixed rules and repetitive tasks, the traditional bots, right? But this is where your journey should be built, where in the level 2 you get empowered, to take decisions, more autonomously, right? You are doing some manual research, and rather, an agent gives you something supportive, something helpful as an assistant, with which your decision making become more easy, right? Here there is a possibility that this agent is not exactly a doer. This agent is a doer just for your assistance, just to help you with some data, help you with some recommendation. The actual doer uh, agent comes at level 2, where the agent with that prior information is taking that step as well, right? But at level 1, maybe you as a human is doing that work, but you are getting a lot of details from the agent, in which you might have to earlier spend a lot of time. For example, right, you are working on a contract you know project, and you wanted to understand compliance related areas, policies. So you can have an assistant, you can have an agent which will help you with all that ground level information, with which you can take a decision, right? So here decision is ultimately being taken by a human, but the prior homework kind of thing are being done by the agent. So the BA has to understand, your particular agent is being created at what level. Are you creating an agent which is the ultimate doer, or it's an assistant kind of agent at this point of time? Because towards the end we have to move to multi-agent orchestration, right? At level 2, the agent is doing work, but the agent is actually moving with maybe just one task, one particular objective. But here the ultimate uh, uh, level is multi-agent orchestration, where cross domain, right? One IT agent talking to sales agent, talking to finance agent, they work together to get that, you know uh, get the job done, right? And fully agentic, where human intervention may come maybe at a very, very minimal level just to approve something, right? But all the domains are talking to each other. They are having, a dynamism in terms of context, right? So that is something which is very, very helpful. I know we are on the top of the hour. I'll just come to this particular slide because this is the most important slide for BAs, and this is something around which you will understand what is your role. So when you're moving from level 0 to level 1, the transformation stage, you have to identify the limitations of rule-based automation, right? That is something which you'll have to capture. But when you're talking about level 1 to level 2, right? You are moving to when you are building an agent, BA has to focus on, understanding the decision boundaries, right? What agent can do, and around which what agent will have a difficult time, right? That call, that decision making is meant to be taken by that BA, right? There could be some compliance related things around which there is a possibility that some context, you know is maybe not comprehensible by the bot, right? So that decision boundary is what you have to decide, that shall I put agent for this particular task, or maybe I can go beyond that. So that is, you'll have to understand. But if you are dealing with a, or multi-agent setup, then you will have to focus on understanding how an action from sales team can impact action at finance team, right? Although all the parties are connected, but you'll have to understand, if agent takes a action for this particular task, is it going to positively impact or negatively impact the finance team, right? So you'll have to focus heavily on that part, where the exchange of information, the communication between agents become a key to maybe uh, build a positive impact, or it could also, create something which was not in line. That is not how the finance team wanted, a customer to answer a particular query, right? So there you have to be very, very vigilant how you actually do it. I'm running a bit faster, folks. The time is also up. I'll just cover this slide. So we have been a part of this entire series, folks, and we understand, how agentic works now. What is the role of a BA? What exactly BA is meant to do, to craft the journey, and not just craft, but to scale that journey, right? So going forward, you will find that, if in order to run a successful automation program, you'll have to understand where exactly things can come together, how these departments, speak with each other, and you will have to understand the backbone, right? So that backbone will be the overall understanding of the domain, right? Going forward, you will find that, since agent creation is not very difficult task, right? The UiPath and all technologies are becoming simple, focusing on low code, no code, right? Agent creation will become an easy thing, where non technical, BAs, all folks can also build an agent. So my overall ask here, or my overall request, recommendation, is to focus on understanding the domain well, right? Focus on understanding how, things communicate, how these departments are connected, and with that you will understand, how machine and human can collaborate, right? This is very, very important. Human machine collaboration is very important. You might be focusing on doing everything via agent, but in reality, the way I have experienced agent, there are areas where you will have to you have to pause, take a very conscious call. Do we really want an agent, or this can be done by a human, right? So that particular consciousness is also very, very important while you work as a BA, right? So first thing is about understanding that domain. You understand how things flow. Second is understanding how human and agent collaboration actually can work, and where do you genuinely need an agent. And then understanding how your overall strategy, overall objective of your company is linked with what you are doing, right? Because uh, this is my experience. I have noticed that uh, this this becomes a company-wide, enterprise-wide initiative, and one success story from one department can actually help other departments to absorb it more easily. So so just don't think about one particular process. Think about how this can actually connect to the larger communication or the larger narrative which your leadership is setting. And then you will understand how to what level of due diligence you have to get involved. And you will be more careful to uh, run the first agentic automation. But then your communication or your overall things will become easy, right? Your first automation will speak for itself, and you will have a great time talking to your leaders to get more and more processes added to your kitty. On that note, folks, I would like to end my session over here. I know we are on the top of the hour, but I am uh, happy to take questions now. AP, I see you have answered a few questions already.
Yeah, we answered few.
Yeah. Are there any questions, folks?
The past sessions, I think, you can see the registration page. So you'll have all the sessions listed out there. You can access that.
Can we have the ADD from the last session?
ADD, hold on. Mukesh, do you have any info on that?
Hey,
Okay, there's a question
hi,
from Kim.
this is Akhil here. So we hosted the last session for ADD. So that ADD is already sent by email to everyone who attended. So if not, I think who's mentioned Kevin Gore, right? So Kevin, I will like connect with you separately to send you that ADD. So let me.
You could send that to Rob Cadwallader too. That would be nice. Thanks, Akil.
Okay, sure, no problem.
These are great sessions, by the way, very practical. That's what I like. Nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There is a question from Kim Caller. AP, let's answer that. If a model is out of the box, a pre-trained model, who's responsible for monitoring Is it the vendor, client, or partnership between client and vendor? If both, is more of the responsibility on the vendor. Pre-trained model, to monitor it. See, generally, generally you use those pre-trained models to make sure that objective gets met, right? Not every company is building models on their own. They are using the earlier pre-trained ones. But I mean, with my experience, I was working for an FMCG client, and there, uh, I mean, and I was on the vendor side when we found that the model was not giving the appropriate accuracy results. Uh, as a vendor, it was our responsibility to monitor it, talk to Microsoft, and get that sorted. So we only got into multiple calls with them, discussed with the vendor to understand where exactly is the scope of improvement, what exactly they have done, is there something which is coming up as a patch. So I mean, for sure it depends on the kind of construct, kind of engagement, or the partnership you have with your client. But ultimately, if it's a support model, if your accuracy is not coming or it's not up to the mark, generally it's vendor who takes it to the you know these out of the box model creators. I mean, that's my experience. AP, if you want to add, or anybody,
No, you're on point. No.
correct.
Thank
I
you.
mean, we had a
Kim had
difficult time, chasing them, although, and we were trying to, get answers, but the client will not exactly, uh, do that chasing part. It's generally the vendor, and that's how, based on my experience, I have seen that. But for sure, it may depend on the kind of engagement construct you have with the client.
Thank you. Kim had to drop, but I work with her, so appreciate the information.
For sure. Okay. Any other questions, anybody? All right. I think, folks, then we can end this session. Rohit, Mukesh, the series is ending. Do you want to say some good words to the team so that they're encouraged to, learn this and be a part of the workforce as a BA and help automations, go beyond one process, and they become a wide enterprise-led initiative. Any comments, Mukesh or Rohit, before we end the session over here? If no, then folks, we'll end the session over here. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure, taking this session for such an amazing audience. I love the way you participated with your comments in the chat box, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for being a part of this series. This is one of a kind series, which is not that regular one. Trust me, this agentic thing and this is going to help all of us a lot. And I'm incredibly thankful to the UiPath team for conducting this series and making me a part of it. So thank you so much, everybody, for your kind participation and support. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.